This object is a ewer, which is a kind of drinking vessel. I'm going to be creating a foam core box to transport this ewer as part of the decant where objects in storage are being moved to a new storage facility. It's going to be packed in an upright position because objects need to remain in the position that they'd be used in and stored in. I think it will probably be a straightforward tall box with a front opening door. It's very heavy because the core is made of cast lead with lacquer over it, and that's slightly alarming as it would have been used for liquids, for drinking, maybe rice wine. Lead is toxic via ingestion orally, and so with most objects in the collection, we do wear nitrile gloves to protect the object from us predominantly, but also to protect us from the object. When you're working with lead, you just have to be a bit more aware of glove hygiene. It has a surface that's decorated with this wonderful inlay of mother of pearl and abalone shell, which have a kind of iridescent finish that looks a bit like sequins. As the light travels across them, it goes through sort of blue and green tones. So that sort of surface is very delicate and have to be really aware of pieces getting lost or damaged. The object will be blocked from the sides of the box to support it, so as it's moving, it can't drop or shift at all. So as I think about the blocking of the object, I'm going to be looking at the surface and thinking about which areas are vulnerable. I mean, it's in amazing condition considering it's 17th or early 18th century. So I'm just going to pop my gloves off now, and I will need to bag those up to go with gloves that have been exposed to materials that are hazardous. Foamcore is a cardboard. It's got two kind of paper surfaces and then a foam in between them, so it's very robust but also very light. And all museum materials are completely inert. They're not going to interact with environmental factors or release any chemicals because obviously that can cause damage to objects. Anything that's going to be used for storage or transport of objects, we use pencil or archival pen to make sure that it's not creating any kind of chemical reaction with the object. I'm going to cut some sides for my box, and then I'll cut the base and the tray and the lid last because I want to get the biggest pieces out first from the piece. So I'm just going to look for, my height measurement is 40 centimetres and satisfyingly this is 84 wide, so I can take two heights and just keep kind of going into the piece. So I've got a reasonable length of blade because of the depth, which is 1 centimetre. I'm just going to make a second cut in case I haven't got the paper on the other side cut quite through. And I can see that that's separated nicely. So this is going to be one of the sides of the box. This is another side. And then this offcut is probably too small to be reused, so that will just go in the bin in a moment. I'm going to make a tray, also out of Foamcore with Plastazote, which is a kind of high density museum grade foam to buffer the object. Like most museums, the V&A has about 10% of their collection on display and about 90% in storage. These objects are all being prepared to be moved. That is the front door of the box. And then just to keep track of what I'm doing can be really useful at the edge of the box that's going to be covered by tape, just to write what part it is, very small in pencil, so you know that you're not trying to build a box out of an offcut that's just a centimetre different or something like that. So I'm just going to kind of tape up my box and make sure that it fits together okay. So I can see that it's fitting together as I wanted it to. And then I've got the door that's going to be on the front. So the object's going to be sitting on a tray that slides into here. As you can see, I've got enough room for the tray to have free movement in and out. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It's nice and close to the sides of the object, which means it's much easier to block into position, but the object is clear of the sides of the box, and so I can keep going, actually gluing the sides together and taping it off so it's ready for the object to be placed into it. I'm now going to focus on gluing the sides of the box together using my lovely hot glue gun. The wonderful thing about hot glue is the stick always seems to run out when you're halfway along a line. So I've also got my lovely box of glue sticks here, which are very satisfying. And what I'm going to do now is really carefully, so I don't damage the surface, I'm going to pick off these pieces of tape that I use just to check that the box fitted together well. I'm just going to finish off with a piece of this tape. So what I'm looking for is just quite a nice straight line, because otherwise it's just a bit unsatisfying if it's a bit wonky and not running parallel with the edge of the box. And then I'm just going to cut that to this length. So this is one of the side panels. And then I'm going to bring it round the edge just by flattening it with my thumb. And then I'm going to bring it around the corner here and just try not to let it distort at all. If there's a little bit of a kind of bubble or a bulge in it, you can bring it out just by smoothing it off like this. So I'm going to start off with this side piece, and I'm just making sure I'm really happy with how that's going to sit, and that's fine. So I've got my glue gun here, so I'm just going to kind of run that along this edge. And then I'm remembering I'm aligning it with the back. So I'm coming down to here and I'm making sure that I'm absolutely perfectly on the edge. And then if there's a bit of excess, I'm just taking that off with the glove so it's not kind of bulking up. The inside it's fine. And then I'm just going to kind of roll this off the tip of my glove. And I'm needing to just feed that in a bit. just going to place that here, make sure that's aligned, which it isn't at the moment. Just bring it down to there, take that back seam, so back to the tape and tape those seams or edges to make it really solid. Just keep that nice and straight. And it's quite nice just to do an angled corner here to get rid of a bit of bulk. And the same here. And do the same with this edge. If you end up with a bit of a bubble in it, you can just flatten it down with your nail. And the same on this side. And now I want to cover this edge. So I'm just going to come up round the corner of it a bit. So it's actually folding over. So that's given a lot of extra strength to the external edges. But now I want to look to the interior and just repeat the same process, but along these seams here. And just smoothing it into place. And the rather awkward thing about that is, of course, the tape needs to be folded to go into the box. So it sort of folds and wraps around this internal edge. I've got a bit of excess here. I'm just going to snip that. And again from here. So that it's nice and tidy. And I'm going to repeat that process for all these internal edges to make it really robust. Now I'm going to tape off the edges of my top lid and the front door of the box, because I'm going to have a hinge created along one facet or side of the door. I'm just going to be taping all the way around the external edge on 3 sides, just to make it really tidy again and more robust, and also because these can give you a bit of a paper cut. It's very satisfying when they align perfectly. Let's see if we can get this beautifully smooth and flat. There we go. The front lid sits within the base, and then the top lid completely covers the top, which just gives a bit of extra strength to it. And this opens up, just as you can see, to be level with the top, but I mean that's well enough for access, but until it's got this piece of tape there's nothing supporting it, so it just kind of wants to drop away. So at this point it's a bit fiddly. There's enough give in it that the box can open as much as it's designed to do. But as you can see now, I've got my piece of tape and it's slightly wider than these 2 sides. So I'm just going to need to snip away a bit. so that I can bring this nice and smooth here, turn it round into here and flatten it off. And then these are little fiddly bits. Let's just get rid of them altogether because I don't want to build up too much bulk here because I want this to shut as tightly as possible. So that's snipped, that's snipped. Now I just want to check that it will close so that I'll be able to attach it here, possibly at the front as well. And I'm happy with that. And next I'm going to be creating some ties so it can all be held in position to travel. And then we do a bit of a Christmas present-y end like this, so it's less likely to fray. And then I just want lots of downward pressure, so I'm going to go quite central. I'm just going to put a bit of a splodge of glue on the lid here, bit of a stripe of it, and get rid of that. And then I'm just kind of flattening my cotton tape onto the box and take the excess off with, just use my finger because it's cooled a bit now. It's trying to drip. So we're just aiming that this tape isn't getting in the way too much, and then when we pull that really tight, and then just tie it in a bow, that's going to hold the box in position, closed quite nicely. So I'm just going to think about how big I would need the blocks to be just to hold it in that position, including something coming down towards the lid, probably on either side of the handle on the lid here, and just kind of get those in position and then use the hot glue again to glue them into place so the object's held in position. These are objects that were handled a lot, and to keep them as pristine as possible after their long lives, firstly as objects that may have been in daily usage and then objects that have been brought into the collection, we want to make sure that they have minimal contact with the surface. It's a question of building a box for them that supports them and then blocking them in a way that they're not able to shift in transit, but they're also not being crushed, they're not being abraded. Just really preserving that delicate surface and protecting the objects for the move. I may use a bit of a buffer material between the surface of the object and the Plastazote to make sure it's not causing any sort of abrasion. I'm just cutting a little oval of silk now to go between the base and the object. So what I'm hoping is this will act as a bit of a buffer and stop it from shifting around, but not be so bulky that it's actually putting any pressure on the object. Just need to shift that back a little bit in position. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. So now that I'm happy with how the blocks are sitting, holding the object in position without putting any excessive pressure on it, I'm going to put my barcode label, which has the object number and a barcode that can be used to scan it to get more information about it or to move it to a different location, alongside the object. But I'm just tucking it in here so it can't move around in transit. And I'm also going to add a hazard sticker to warn anybody opening it that there is a hazard present, which is the lead body of the vessel, which they can then look up to see what's there and what precautions they need to take. So that's the end of our process, which is about a day's work in all. And this object is ready in its container to go back into storage until it's shipped to V&A East.